Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another great episode called Landscaping to the Point with my hosts, Josh and JC over next to me. I'm all the way down at the end, Scott. So thanks for all joining us. We got some great topics today. I wanted to touch on one. Josh is jumping in and out, but he's having fun today. He's got a house full of guests. So, but I have a great question, and this goes out to both of you because, I've experienced it in my life, and I feel like some people need to know about this. Okay. Insurance. Are you totally covered for everything that you do? Because I'll get a little story into it and then we'll kind of jump on you guys. So a couple years back, I have insurance for fertilization. So we had mixed some chemicals and it reacted with the water a little bit different than it should have. And it pretty much burned one lawn totally, and then it, toasted a couple little other spots in the other lawns. So the one lawn was totally toast. I couldn't do nothing right away because it usually, if you toast something, it's dead for a while. It takes at least 8 weeks if you can do anything. The customer wanted it fixed, wanted it fixed right away. Nothing I could do about it, except for till it all up and start all over. And he didn't really want to start with that. So I ended up having to contact my insurance after about 5 weeks and say, just handle this from here on out. Luckily, I have it covered in my insurance to take care of something like that if it happens. But do you guys have the insurance to cover everything that you do? Like I know Josh, you do, the hardscapes and you might touch into like hitting like a gas line or electric line. Do you have that in case? And then
Yeah.
Josh and then JC, do you have the insurance for if you shoot a rock into a $1,000 window? Sometimes that happens, and I've seen that happen before. So it's kind of like, do you have the coverage for all that? Either one of you can jump in first, bang at it. I know you guys are waiting.
So
Go ahead.
I'll jump in. Yes. Yeah, so I'm covered across the board for everything.
Okay.
Um I'm having an issue right now because I had to switch insurance companies. I got canceled on last year through my general liability, who also did my snow policy because we had a claim that was like upwards of $70,000, which I thought was weird because I usually don't submit claims. I try to handle them out of pocket if they're small enough. And we like kind of rushed and went to this new company who doesn't have like a local agent. And I just got a letter from one of the management companies we work with that we're short on some of the the endorsements. Um, this company wants to charge us to have endorsements on our policy, which I've never had. So next week I'm kind of juggling that. But to answer the question, yeah, I've always been covered in the beginning when I did like lawn care, mulching, mowing, not like the fertilization or anything. I did subcontract that stuff, but I was covered for everything across the board. So I was covered for irrigation, fertilization, even though I didn't do those things myself. I was just covered. So the liability was there. If something to then the liability, if one of the subcontractors was to damage something, it comes back on me because I'm billing the service. As I've grown, and this is one thing I tell people that I've learned from the insurance agent, is that general liability policy that you have for lawn care landscape doesn't necessarily cover excavation hardscapes. It might say hardscapes, but you have to look at what the depths are as far as your excavation. Because if you dig down, once you get past like 3 or 4 feet, you're not covered in a general liability policy. You have to go deeper. So you're going from like a $1,000 to $2,000 policy to like a $5,000 to a $7,000 policy. Same thing goes with the snow. Most general liability policies will cover you up to 5,000 square feet of plowable asphalt or concrete. Actually, I think that's probably 99% of them. Once you get past that 5,000 feet, you have to go into what's considered a full service snow policy. Those full service snow policies, at least in Massachusetts, start at $19,000 per season. So that's when you kind of have to weigh, what you're going to make versus what you have to pay out. So 19 grand just to start to be covered. And then I have an umbrella and I have my workman's comp, and then all my private, my commercial auto.
Yeah, I agree. So JC, are you covered for mowing on everything?
I am. Yeah, so that's one of the first things I did before I started the business up. I was doing a lot of research. So I just didn't jump in. Now, initially, I was kind of mowing lawns here and there, and um, obviously didn't even have my business established at the time as far as like legitimacy goes with documentation. But at the time, I didn't. But when I sat down and was serious about wanting to get everything legitimized, when I got my employer identification number and opened up my bank account, stuff like that, I did open up a basic liability plan. It doesn't cover much just based on the fact that my what I do is very limited, but it does protect me. Thankfully, I've never had to use it yet for anything like that. But basic coverage, limited liability for property, and if I break a window or I smash into a AC unit, something to that extent. Obviously, it's something that you at least want to have. Something's better than nothing. My policy personally could be a little better. I did kind of cheap out, but with that being said, like the amount of stuff that I do, yeah, anything could happen. And it's always nice to have that coverage so you don't have to end up paying stuff out of pocket. But it's cheap enough that you're almost stupid not to do it. The company that I go through, it was like an online one. It's called Hiscox Insurance, and it's very easy to do. You could apply online and basically ask you a few questions and whatnot, and just end up getting a policy from there. So it's easy. There's no reason not to do it because it's that easy to get, and it'll save you in the long run. I mean, again, it's nice not being able to be in incidents that nice not having to use it, but it's one of those things when you need it, it's definitely good to have.
Yeah,
I don't.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't think that you say cheap out, and I'm gonna insure your ass here. I see what I did there. Because people will read you the riot act when your scope of work is strictly mowing, right? Like you don't really get into too much of the other stuff. Those policies aren't that expensive, and you're right to get them. I mean, you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I searched them up in the beginning, you can get those policies online for like $500 to $800. And then when you add a little bit more scope of work, like the lawn care landscaping, they go up to about 1,000, 2,000. That's just a rough number. But he's right. Even going out mowing, guys think that, oh, I'm just mowing a lawn, nothing can happen. What happens if you run over the customer's cat, you don't see him, and they sue you for emotional distress? That $1 million policy will cover that. And it sounds crazy, but shit like that can happen. Scott just said, you break a window, an Anderson window, a French door window, could be upwards of $2,000 to $3,000. So that $500 policy covers you. Yeah, you're going to get hit with the surcharge every year, but I mean, it's better than having to pay stuff out of pocket.
Yeah, I look at it too. The way I look at it too, it's customers have peace of mind when they know that you're insured. So that you're not just some hack that's just going around and taking cash payments and just not a non-legitimate business. I mean, it means something to them to know that you're insured. That means it comes across as being professional, and they're more apt to hire somebody who has insurance, maybe, as opposed to someone who does not, or maybe they don't. Some companies don't even tell their client they don't have insurance, and then when shit hits the fan, it's like it turns into a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should tell customers, especially especially if you're going into like commercial accounts. I mean, they always want to know. They want to see that policy to see what your coverages are, because they want to know that you're covered out there to do whatever they need done. I mean, I have every year I send a policy to like 3 of my big commercial accounts just so that they have it on file, because they want to know. I mean, they don't really care too much. Some of them don't, but a lot of them do, because they, even though you're out there, there's other people coming in and out, and they don't have that coverage for you to shoot a window at a rock at a window in a car and destroy a car, or somebody, they're worried about you getting hurt. Especially, one also good thing is if you have an employees, like make sure that your employees are covered under that policy. I know all my employees are covered under it. If you change out employees, they're covered for driving the vehicle. They're covered for using the equipment, because you could be having a policy and not have an employee, and you don't put them on that policy, and he got hurt, or he destroyed something, and it's like, how do you explain it to the insurance? Because insurance is going to be like, wow, okay, well, he wasn't covered, so you're going to have to pay out of pocket at that point. So if you add in one employee, make sure you got him covered.
So I feel like To me, the important part of the insurance is to try to have a local agent, because just with like to piggyback off what you just said, it only takes an hour or two at the beginning of the year to go through your coverage with your agent and say, hey, listen, last year I was just mowing. This year I started doing sprinklers, like in my cupboard, and they can go through everything with you and explain, well, if you're doing sprinklers, what about the excavation? What about this? What about employees? And they can show you what the added coverage is and the average of a claim through that industry. So try to go local. Sometimes a little bit more expensive than going through like an online thing.
Mhm.
But the online things, if you have an issue, a lot of the times they just pass the buck to whomever.
Right.
I mean, I had just an example. I had that $70,000 claim. We had a front end loader blower hydraulic line on brand new pavement, and it was an entire lot that was paved already. It was fresh new pavement. It was our fault for staging there. I called my agent right away. They submitted the claim. The insurance company, which was the Hartford, had called me and said what had happened. I explained that we were only in like the parking stalls, the white lanes. We were parked this way against the lanes. And I said it was my fault. Like I can't deny it. Like it was on us. I was going to hire a panel washer company to do it. I don't hear anything for 6 months. Finally, I get a claim for $72,000 for paving. But what the fuck? I'm like $72,000 to pave probably 800, 1,000 square feet. Like that doesn't sound right. Like I could go excavate it myself and hire a paving company for like 20 grand. So come to find out, the company, because it's a brand new lot, they didn't want the seams in the lot. They wanted it all paved, that whole entire area. So my insurance goes to me. They're like, yeah, like we have a big meeting with the company, the landscape company I'm subcontracted by, his insurance company, me and my insurance company. And more or less, my company was trying to fight me on it, basically saying, well, we're not going to cover because they want no seams. We're going to cover for what you damaged. And I'm like, what do I pay for? Right? Like, what the fuck? The guy, the landscape company that I do the subcontracting for, old school guy, he goes, Josh, they fucking work for you. He goes, they will fight you for every dime you get. So I go in there on a conference call and I had to be firm and active and say, you're recording the conversation, right? I said, yeah. I said, under my policy, I'm covered for whatever damage. I said, it's a brand new lot. I said, we did the damage. It's scattered damage. We need to be covered. I'm not paying a dime. So they were trying to get me to pay $40,000 out of pocket. I told them I'm not paying a fucking dime. I'm not paying a fucking dime. There's no way. They said, well, it's going to come back and, someone's going to counter you. I said, I'm not paying a dime. I said, I pay $8,000 a year for my policy. So over a span of 10 years, I'm spending thousands and thousands of dollars over the span of my career. I'm spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on all my insurance. So I'm, eat it. That's on you. That's what we pay you for. So they ended up paying for it. I mean, it took a lot of fighting and grudge and yelling and stuff. But I mean, I had to get my agent involved. And the thing I like is I finally go to the insurance company. I said, I'm leaving it where it is. I'll have my agent doing. So I call my agent. I said, I'm done fighting this battle. Like, you represent me, fight for me. And they came back and coverage was made. Now, if that was an online company, I'm on my own. I'm on my own. You're gonna get someone in there that doesn't have the experience as like a full-time, not a full-time, but like a seasoned agent. Usually they're in and out of that place, those places.
Yeah, I mean, I think having a local agent is a lot better. I've had a local agent all my life, and I feel like we even do work for our agent. So it's like we know, I can go in there and at any time and say, I'm doing this. What do you think? And that's the good thing, and she'll make sure that I'm covered for it, and she goes through and, something changes, their, policy changes, like, oh, we're only covering up to this. She's let me know, like, hey, this is changing, do you want to up your insurance on this, or how do you want to do it? I mean, one thing she definitely does is, like, right before a new policy renews, she always says, okay, do you have any new equipment you want to add? Do you have a list of all the equipment, because they'll insure every piece of equipment for you. And that's, I have equipment that I don't even use it. I have insurance on it. And it's like, at least I have it in case I have to, get it up and running and use it. It's covered. So that's always good.
Do you have, does your insurance cover theft?
Yeah, I was actually robbed about 10 years ago from an employee. And they took a truck, a trailer, brand new equipment. Luckily, it was covered. Everything was covered, but it took months for it to do because pretty much it had to go through pretty much the police department and the insurance agency, and the insurance agency thought it was a inside job because it was an employee. But pretty much the police could show that he was the one that came in. He had fingerprints all over it. He disappeared afterwards. So I finally got it, taken care of. But that's one thing is it comes back to when you really have a piece of equipment, you don't really think about sometimes about that theft, and that you got to make sure that everything's covered. And so by having every piece of equipment that you have on there, letting your insurance agent know that you have that piece of equipment as soon as you get it is the best thing possible, because then that way it's covered. And that was, luckily it was it was a week after everything was bought. I had bought a brand new zero turn, brand new weed whip, brand new blower, brand new chainsaw, and pretty much all that stuff was taken, plus a couple other things. So it was like to have that, knowing that, okay, this is what was gone, and having a list, and then they already had a list. So it was like I could go back and say, this is what I need, But it's like also it comes back to, do you have a backup piece of equipment? Because that took 3 months before I even got a check to replace that equipment. So it's like you need to, it was in the middle of the season. So, I mean, that's one of the things you're like, what do I do at this point? Luckily I have backup equipment to where I can go out and use it till I can replace it. And that's always something that you should think about to have, if, like an extra weed whip, an extra blower, or an extra mower that you can back up on. Or I know a couple places in our area that rent zero turns and stand on. So it's like to be able to go to them and say, I need a piece of equipment till something happens, and it takes care of it. And yeah, you might have to eat that cost of rental on that piece of equipment, but you at least know that you can get through compensation time. So I know Josh has probably got like a crap load of stuff in his place of all the backup.
I mean, not a crap load, but like the lawn care stuff in the day, I definitely did. I had, I would buy weed whackers. It's funny how you guys say weed whips. I never heard that until I started watching.
Say weed whackers.
Like weed whackers, yeah. Like we never like what's a weed whip?
It's a weed whip here, man. Come on.
That makes sense. I'm like, okay. And then string eaters. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I would go on Craigslist and I would buy like used ones just to have as backup and stuff. I never really went heavy with the commercial grade weed whackers. To me, I always got the Echo in the day. It was like the 266 or something they sold in Home Depot, and those were great because I would get a season and a half out of them, and they were done. They were $200, so it was like you make that on one account with a month's worth of mowing or something, So, but yeah, I mean, rentals are the big thing. If something goes down, it is nice to have extra stuff like the heavier equipment, like the skid steers. We use a lot. We have two. One's a backup. One's a full time. So it's nice to have that option. I didn't always have that option where, if I was on a job that we needed a skid steer, I mean, it's $1,400 a week to rent a skid steer. But not even just that. Like you got to realize, like you're rushing through trying to use that skid steer, so you can't work at your own leisure. The one thing I wanted to add just to the insurance thing, and then I'll jump off it because I could talk about this for hours. Is remember, like if you do submit a claim, right? First of all, it's really important to have insurance. That was the one thing I jumped on. It's really important to have insurance, no matter how small the scope of work you're doing. Protect yourself. It's not worth not being covered, and something catastrophic will probably not happen. The chances are small, but you could be that one-off where it's like shit. Like I did something horrible, like I backed into the customer's kid or something like that. So you want to make sure you're covered. Honestly, you never know. And then when you are in the claim making process, like if you ever had a claim on your personal vehicle for vehicle damage, like I worked in a body shop for years, an automotive repair shop and a body shop. The insurance company's job, the agent that's working, the claim handler, is to save the insurance company the most money possible. So yes, they work for you, but their job is not to represent you. Their job is to go through it and try to cut their costs as much as possible. That's what they're trained for. That's what they do. So you will have to fight them sometimes. In the body shop, for instance, like we had insurance companies that would come in and say, hey, you're using this used bumper. And it's like, It's a 3-year-old car. Why would we use a used bumper? And it rotates the same way to the general liability policies. The workman comps, they're pretty straightforward. You just have to read your policy to make sure what you're covered for. Like Scott said, he made sure that all his guys were covered under his policy. The same thing with your GL. Make sure it's the same thing on your workman's comp, because you don't want a guy to cut his fingers off on a weed whacker, hit himself with a chainsaw, or get a rock in the eye with a weed whip. And then, you're in trouble. And then also having written rules where, like, if you're a mowing crew, everybody's going to wear safety glasses, because if you have it there and then the employee tries to sue you, which does happen a lot in this industry, it's a sue happy world. And there's some scumbags out there that would intentionally set you up, and you have that written policy that says you got to wear glasses, you can fight them on it and you will win.
So now you're jumping into policies. Okay. So I know you like to have a written policy for everything, Josh. So do you have written processes and written policies for different things? Like, say if I joined your crew and what would be the first thing I would do when I joined your crew? What would the first thing I would make me do?
I would walk you through and verbally tell you and point everything we do from the moment you walk into the shop, what your scope of work is specifically. I would explain, because this is an issue I still have, is when you guys come in, this isn't a union shop. Like, your scope of work that I tell you is what you do when you come in. But when it gets busy, you might have to pick up a weed whacker. You might have to pick up a broom. You might have to pick up a chainsaw. Anybody that comes to work for me, whether it's like, high school, college kids in the summer or a full-time guy, you kind of have to earn your stripes before you pick up a piece of equipment, just because I don't know if you know how to use a hedge trimmer, and you can get hurt with the hedge trimmer, So I do have some written stuff that's pretty simple. Like, I didn't have an attorney write the policy. I did it myself. I had my insurance agent kind of look it over just to make sure what I wrote made sense, because it was cheaper. I cheaped out there where it was like, all right, it was $500 an hour, and I didn't have enough paperwork for the attorney to go over. But it was like the insurance agent didn't charge me anything just to make sure each line was covered. And it's pretty simple. We're like, scope of work and processes, like construction sites, like legit construction sites, hard hats, hybrid vests, and eyeglasses. Like, you got to wear them. It's like, there's no exception. I mean, that's an OSHA regulation too, violation if you get caught. So small things, but simple. Yeah, you got to have them. I've had buddies that work for me where it's just like, let's go. Like, you're not signing anything. And, it's the bottom of the page when the other guys come in, they just have to sign a date and it goes in. But I've never had an issue, to be honest with you. I've never had an issue. I've never had an employee claim anything. I had one guy that, what did he do? I think he was going with the hammer, a rubber mallet, and he got distracted and he hit his wrist. Ooh. And he ended up spraining his wrist to bruise his bone. And more or less, like, what I learned from one of my uncles I worked for in the day was, see what it costs out of pocket before you put in the claim. So I told him, I said, go up there, don't say it's with work, because they automatically put it through workman's comp. If there's any cost associated with it, I'll take care of it. This guy's been with me for a while. He put it through his insurance. He had like $100 deductible for the insurance room. So, I gave him that payday. The next day paid off, and, the $150 for the insurance visit. It was cheaper than having that claim and having my rates go up, $1,000 a year for the next 7 years.
Right. I think that's one of the things that people don't realize, that because literally, like, even though you might break that window, what is your insurance, deductible? Yeah. Your insurance deductible, I know mine's $500. Like, so if it's a small window, $500, like, okay, fine, I'll go ahead and eat that. We had a couple fences. They're, expensive fences, and one of our guys backed into it, and it's a metal wrought iron fence. Okay. So literally, the company to come out to install it is $500 just for to install it and to put it in. Our deductible is $500. The cost of the fence for me as a contractor to go to the place that it's made at is $100. I'm going to go ahead and do that, waste an hour with my time to put up a fence and pay the $100 than to pay the deductible or to pay the company to install it. So it's something you always, like you say, Josh, is that, see what it's going to cost you out of it, your pocket first before you even go ahead and do it. I mean, that's definitely something that I think we should all kind of look at first, unless it's something big that you know right away, like this is way out of my league. Maybe I don't know how to do this, or, it's going to be more expensive than I think, so definitely check into
Josh,
it.
Josh said something important that I think just not so much even for a business aspect, but for life in general is documentation to cover your own ass. Like, it goes in part with the organization of a business, and just having something written down for when you might not need it, but when you have it written down, you have somebody signed it, they agreed to it, and it just gives you more proof if, God forbid, a situation like that happens where they're asking for that paperwork and you don't have it. So just covering your own ass in this business, I think, is really important, and just making sure that you're staying organized and having everything that you need for when an incident like that happens, you're going to be prepared and ready.
And Scott, I think I know why you asked me that question. We were involved in a group chat, and I brought that up for something completely different. So, as far as the guys, the employees, that's minimal how I do that, just because I just make sure I protect my ass. Now, residential for policy with the customer, it's pretty straightforward. Where I just have prompts written into like the agreements, where it's basically like, on like a walkway, it shows like simple excavation of 10 inches of earth. If we run into anything like large boulders, utility lines, that's per hour to remove those. Now, where I really have to protect my ass is we do new development work, where we do pavers or retaining wall or CMUs, which are cinder blocks. Everything's always wrong on them. Everything is wrong on the plans. Every job we've been on, nothing's been right. The grades have never been right. I'm on a job right now in Newburyport, Massachusetts, where the contractor I'm hired through told me, yeah, this is the company's internal crew that's doing it. Everything's down to the T. We go in there, we were putting in curbing, Belgian cobble curbing, and for 10 feet we used 26 bags for 10 feet. Wow. So just for an example, you should be able to use 2 bags for 10 feet worth of Belgian cobble to have your 5-inch back, your backdrop, and then your 2 inches in the front. Right. So with that, we ran a string line. They were off on the whole thing, but the deepest part, they were off by 9 inches.
Wow. That adds
the
up.
last job we went to. So that adds up on time. So now my guy who screeds has to throw all that extra sand because we don't have time for a change order. So the way it works in these jobs is the installer to put that in, you're technically supposed to give him the opportunity to fix his work. Usually these guys are already off, like they take their equipment out and they're gone. We don't have the gravel on site, and we have a deadline we have to go by. Otherwise, it's a process where we have to resubmit a change order to the engineer, the architect, and go through. So now what I do is I'm adamant about what exactly am I doing? I need to see it in writing, every step that you want me to do. So I know my exact scope of work. Like I need to see, like if Scott hires me and Scott says, yeah, Josh, can you dig a 4-foot trench, 300 feet, make it have a flare off so that we don't need a box or anything. As simple as that, I'm having Scott write it down, like, and have each one of us sign it. That way I know exactly what I'm doing and there's no questions about it. Because I've done these jobs before. I've done these jobs before, and I've had to eat them because I didn't have that. And they go, well, no, that's what we told you to do. And I'm kind of like, no, it's not. Like these last 2 jobs we did, and I'll send you guys photos. They were like my main guy that was doing the screeding and running the job. Remember, it's 1 inch of sand for your screeding bed that you put your pavers on. Because they had to get out of there, and the architect told them there was no time to put a change order in. He had 5 inches worth of sand on half that patio. It was 1,000 square foot patio. 5 inches of sand. And you know what's going to happen to that? So I had to write something up right there. I didn't have my laptop on me with the e-sign, the DocuSign, and have him sign it saying that we like it's technically it's supposed to be a hold harmless, but the way I had to write it up, I just wrote the words hold harmless on it, where like the patio is going to fail. It's right. Inevitable it's going to fail because it's road bank is a base. So I hate road bank because there's dirt in road bank. The type that the site contractors use. So that moisture is going to get in there. Groundwater is going to come up. It's going to freeze thaw. Sand holds like a sponge. We don't use sand on our projects. We use chip stone for that reason, so it trickles through, and it's going to fill. And I don't want to be responsible for a 1,000 square foot patio that's probably going to cost me thousands of dollars to replace. The time, the effort. Now, mind you, like by the time it's going to fail, there's going to be, this is probably 100 unit building. So all those people will be living in. It's going to be furnished. It's going to be. It becomes a nightmare. So I just make sure specifically what they want when it comes to the new development. On a residential point, I make sure that I cover my tracks. It's more of a simple aspect and simple scope of work. So just on my prompts for everybody across the board, it doesn't change unless there's a specific scope of work. I write down exactly what we're doing, and my guys know that that's their scope of work when they go there. You're digging 10 inches, you're grading the subgrade, you're putting in gravel, compacting it, putting in gravel, compacting it, screening 1 inch layer, put the pavers in, putting poly sand, hose it down, clean up, break the dirt, and you're gone.
So now, you said you have like a tablet that you carry around with you or a laptop, then you have the DocuSign on it. Do you carry that pretty much every time? And then like when you're at a job site, and you cure this issue of having a job site change, do you go ahead and contact the customer and do it right then and there?
Typically, yes. Like the example I just gave you, that day I had switched into my car and left my laptop. I'm like, I have like a stand on my truck, and I was going back and forth, and I left it in there. And I go to reach for it, I'm like shit. But I had him sign it, and then what I did is I took a photo, I uploaded it, and I put it in his file on my computer. But yeah, so that was the whole reason of doing that. It's because I had a bad habit. If I would get so busy during the day, and we would change something with the customer, I would have a quick estimate. Like I would say, yeah, this, I'll send you an email later, and just like not write it down and just completely forget. Like I'm the type of person where I would get busy and I have something like a quick, $700 add-on that I wouldn't build. Like I just remembered, like we were doing an irrigation repair, and the guy had a in-ground basketball hoop. We do in-ground basketball hoop installations. We did it for him for like $800. I've never built them. I just realized this last night. So I got to go back and I got to bill him for the basketball hoop. So things like that. I was like, you know what? I went on. I was like, let me grab a laptop. I think it was like $1,000. I put it on a finance credit card. I paid $50 a month to knock it out real quick, and it paid for itself because I can go on. I can use my CRM. I can use my DocuSign, send it right through my emails. If I find myself I have nothing to do, or I knock out my punch list for the day, I go on and I just refresh all my stuff and whatever I got to do. But it helps tremendously because I know you have your phone. But for me, it's a pain in the ass with the phone. It doesn't light up right enough, or people are squinting. People don't like, looking at a phone. For me, it's a little bit more professional. My laptop turns into a tablet where I can do a touchscreen. I like having it. Like for me, especially, like I have, I'm on meds for ADHD, and my mind goes everywhere. So if I have, a bad day, I forget a ton of shit, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like I do that in the, and I have noticed that at the end of the year, I'll forget something that, I was supposed to bill a customer, and you're like, shit, do I bill for it now? Do they remember that I did that for them and I told them I'd take care of it and never bill them? It's always like, we bought a Chromebook laptop with the same way with you, you flip around to a tablet. I have not brought it with me yet lately, but I mean, we're looking into trying to do that so that way, because there's always that change where the customer's like, okay, you're installing this, can I get something different, or can I get this? And you're like, sure, and I forget all about it till the end of the year, and then I'm like, shit, I'm doing, and then year stuff, and I'm like, okay, I never billed this guy for this, I never billed this guy for that. What what was I thinking at that point? Oh, because you're in a rush. You get in that rush, and you don't think about that one little thing that you're like, okay, whatever. I got to get this done. So, I got to get this build out. I want to hurry up and get done so I can be done with this job. So
I had this, even before I started the business, I had this like little portable printer. And when I first started off, I was like on this whole, hey, I'm going to be a professional mode. I was actually printing out invoices and like after I finished up the job and gave it like a
wow
receipt to the customers. Nice. I just thought it was cool. But then also in the beginning, I had the what's it called, the Chime payment there with the you could take the credit card, you just plug it into your phone and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more of a hassle than anything until I set myself up for the online payments and stuff. And some of my customers they'll pay me mostly with cash. I'm check, but they're old school. But yeah,
Yeah.
the option there. I like to have the option there too for the payments online. It's easier.
Yeah,
I
I think having that option of either or check or payment, I mean, it's good. I mean, I do have a lot of older customers, so it's like they want the bill emailed to them or sent by, by snail mail, and then they'll pay me by check, and I picked up two this year that, they're like, bring me the bill at the end of the month, and we'll pay you right then and there with a check or cash. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I don't mind doing it. I'll bring it to you. So that it's nice to have. Either way, be able to do it. Go
Dude,
ahead, Josh.
I had 1 year. It's funny because you said one, like, at the end of the year you added up. I had 1 year I added up what I forgot, and at that point these jobs are so early in the year you can't bill them. It was
Right.
$4,000 worth of miscellaneous invoice.
Oh my God.
$4,000, man.
Wow.
I was so pissed because I'm like, what are you gonna do? Like, I wanted to bill it, but I'm like,
Right.
you look like a fucking idiot at that point.
I think anything, if you go back and like, I've done that too, to where it's like I forgot to bill like a mulch job or cleanup, a spring cleanup for a customer, and I'm like, I know I did it, and I'll look at my my notes, because I used to carry tablets, the rings notebooks, and write down exactly what I do, and I'll check them off as I used to bill them, but then I'll go through at the end of the year and look at them, and I'll be like, shit, I
Something's
forgot to
missing.
bill this cleanup. It was a $200 cleanup. Do I send it now to him? He got the fall one. Does he want the new one now? And it's like, shit.
I was a notebook guy, and you know what happened to me at the end of the month? I'd have 5 fucking notebooks in my truck. Like, the first 3 pages are filled out. Like, dude, when I say like my ADHD is bad, like it gets fucking bad. Like, I can be very disorganized. Like, this guy that I realized, the basketball hoop guy I was just talking about,
Right.
that was back in early. He's still getting fucking bill. Like, I don't feel bad now. The guy's in a $1.2 million house. He's getting a bill, but
Right.
like, it's still early enough. But man, yeah, I can get screwed. Like, the laptop has saved my ass as long as I'm on top of it. Like, in the winter, my plow bills for commercial they're substantial, right? So I can't forget to bill those. So as soon as we do our last pass with salt, I'm billing it. Like, I write it up, send it.
Right.
Done. Anything after that is an extra invoice. I mean, dude, it was like $900 to $1,000 for the computer. I went on Amazon. I bought one of those stands that you hook up to the bottom of the passenger seat, and the computer sits right there. So as soon as I get into my truck in the winter, I'm seeing the computer going, let me build that out right now. Like, I always thought about the printer idea that Jensen had. I just never pulled the trigger on it because I'm like, am I going to use it or not? Like, it is cool, especially when you have those instances where like you would have like a change order, but now it's like you have the DocuSign. I don't do a lot of change orders, so like you get the free option of DocuSign where you get like 3 a month or something, and then it goes up to 1,000 for like $50 a month. But I don't do that many because typically we're only on 2-3 months, 2-3 jobs a month with the hardscaping.
Hey Josh, I was gonna say, send that guy from the basketball hoop a past due bill and tell him that you're gonna waive the fee.
Oh, it's funny because I got 2.8% per month, a finance charge, and a processing fee for when you're late, and people see that. And I've done that where like I'll put the date of service, and then I'll put like due upon receipt, and then they get a past due bill, and they're like, dude, what the fuck is this? Like, you're gonna hit me with fees? But oh no, that's my bad. That's my bad. And you know what's bullshit? I was so busy at that time this year. He texted me to say, hey, can you send me a bill? Yeah, I'll send it tonight, and I just never did. And then because it's those little small jobs that are like, all right, that's peanuts compared to like the comma that's in most of the bills I write, and it's like, well, at the end of the year when you're going, oh shit, there's a comma in that number now. Like, that's $4,000. That would have paid part of my insurance policy. That's a month worth of payroll for like a part-time guy who would not, like, holy shit. And it's irresponsible on my part, because I'm supposed to, this is what I do. I'm supposed to manage the company.
Right. Oh yeah, I can see it. It's happened to me. I mean, I definitely gotta get more with you on this whole carrying my tablet and and getting that more. A lot of I feel like a lot of newer companies are doing that is carrying it with them. I know a lot of FERC companies in our area carry the printers, the mobile printers, and all that stuff because they do a lot of stuff right then and there. So that way they don't have to write nothing up like they used to. So I mean, yeah,
Well,
it's
say you use one of the CRMs, right? Jobber, or I forget what the other one is. It's the Jobber's competitor. If you go right in, you have your CRM open. Um, you're writing everything down. You're taking their info, and you're going, okay, lawn mowing, $75 a week, fertilization, $100 an application, mulch, $800. Send right there. They can verify. Or like with most of the CRMs, you can get the approval right on the spot and have them sign if they're ready to go. Boom, documentation right there. All you do is in one of your labor lines, you can have a pre-prompted agreement where it's like bills due upon receipt, blah blah blah, your fees you're going to pay, and basically an explanation of your work in each prompt. So I mean, you can knock it out right there, and that's a lot quicker. And that's something that I try to do with having a tablet. What gets a little tricky with the type of work I do is like on some jobs, I have to take a ton of measurements. I have to go through stuff. So it's not something that I would just sit there and like have a customer wait. I got to come home and I actually have to like write down grade checks on what I'm going to do. And yeah, so
Yeah, I
gets
feel
a
like
little involved.
landscaping jobs are more involved. You can't really just go out and give an estimate right then and there. You gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta check your prices. And I go out and I kind of like you, I go out and measure it, look at the area, take pictures, and then I'm always telling the customer I'm gonna come back. I'll come back or I'll send you the estimate, and we can go from there. I never I used to just be like, yeah, it's this much. And then I'd end up screwing myself in the long run on, the price of the bush would be, $20 more. And you're like, shit, now I can't charge that because, price changed or, had to buy it somewhere else. So I'm always telling the customer I'll come back or give them the estimate over, a couple days later. So
Yeah. Plus, what if you forget? Like you threw out a number, like, yeah, trim your bushes, it's $150. But then you saw three other people after that, and you got a bunch of phone calls, and you're talking numbers all day, and you just forget what you told them because you didn't write it down and put it in your computer right then and there. So that
right.
happens too.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So we've had a great episode talking about insurance and documentation. And I think everybody's learned a lot this week. And so that's it for this episode. I want to thank Josh and JC for being on. I know they take a lot out of their time, and I appreciate that. And I think we're getting some great numbers here, guys. And keep listening. Comment, like it on our YouTube page, Landscapes by Acme. Listen to us on all your social platforms as you listen to your podcasts. I know Josh likes Spotify and JC likes to listen on Google, but you can listen to us on anything. So go ahead and listen to us. Landscaping to the Point. Thank you guys for being on. This was a great episode. Wait for the next one because we're going to have even better ones.